And we are live. Now, normally I go live on Saturdays. However, to try to fit it in with the schedule of my guest or guests, if the other one shows up later on, I schedule this for the midweek. So, going to be talking about the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. But before we get into this, I wanted to get some things clear straight up front. My reason for purchasing whiskeys could be a little bit different than other people who are whiskey enthusiasts. I am sort of on a journey of studying distilleries, history, production, so on and so forth, through books, obviously tasting whiskeys, and if I can, visiting distilleries. I've been to 40 distilleries thus far in Scotland, and I've been held back for the last couple of years from returning to Scotland due to COVID, whatever. But Lord willing, I'll be back in Scotland next year, maybe knock out another 10 to 20. We'll see how that goes. But one of the things I came to realize in studying distilleries is, I've spent enough time on the distilleries I love, Ardbeg, Lagavulin, ones I'm currently doing in the series. I've got a lot of bottles from these various distilleries. And there are a lot of other distilleries I have not spent time with, which in the course of my study, I need to spend more time with. I need to study. I need to do the history and research on them. But then while looking at the various distilleries out there and, looking at a map and looking in books, I realized some of those, I never see those on the shelf. In fact, I don't think I've ever heard anybody talking about them. I don't hear whiskey tubers talking about them. And I'm like, what? Do they really ever make it here to the United States? So when you search online, looking for these bottles from these particular distilleries, some of the distilleries don't sell directly to the market. Their whiskey goes into blends, and so they typically don't bottle some of their own whiskeys. Or some of them don't really have a lot of distribution. So you're not going to see them here in the United States. You may find them perhaps in Scotland. And so when I started paying attention to more and more of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, started realizing, hey, some of the bottlings that they offer correspond, because they don't tell you what the distillery is on the bottle, and they don't mention it during the live streams. But if you look at the list, some of those correspond to distilleries that I don't see the bottles here in the United States. Some of them I've never even heard of, and some of them may not even be bottling and selling their own bottles. So I thought, you know what? If I want to study every distillery, and by the way, some distilleries are not open to the public. So that can be another challenge if you want to visit distilleries. You have to kind of go online. I think it's becoming more and more common. They're realizing the importance of tourism. There's over 40,000 people working in whiskey-related industry in Scotland. But realize, you know what? Scotch Malt Whisky Society, for this reason alone, is worth checking out. That if you're like me and you want to get beyond the more commonly known producers, that you're going to need to go through someone else who sources the cask for you. And so Scotch Malt Whisky Society, in addition to, as I mentioned in a recent video, 10 reasons why I joined the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, the non-chill filter, basically almost all of them, as far as I can tell, are cask strength, no added coloring, those things that we like. We whiskey aficionados really, really like. So then, of course, a lot of my fellow whiskey tubers, I've been getting on the Scotch Malt Whisky Society bandwagon for a while. I met Ben Dietrich. He had given me some samples to take home when I was at the 5th anniversary that Scott and Bart had at the Scotch Test Dummies, their anniversary party that they had down there in Kansas. And he gave me some samples, and I was really taken back by one of them. And I did a review of one of the samples that he gave me. That was from distillery number 3, the real heavy sherry cask. All right, so now I'm becoming much more and more a fan of Scotch Malt Whisky Society because it fits within my journey of the kind of exploration I'm looking for in studying whiskey. They're providing a niche, a gap in my ability to study distilleries. So to be open and honest, okay, I don't have any Patreons. I don't ever ask for and I don't receive free bottles. That's sort of my policy about it, because I want to be able to give an open and honest review of a whiskey. If someone else receives bottles and open and honest about it, then I don't have a problem with it. Now, Scott had contacted me a little while back, said, hey, would you like to come on the Scotch Malt Whisky Society channel? So not my channel, the SMWS channel, do a live stream, and we'll send you some whiskeys. I'm like, okay, cool. So they sent me 6 bottles. I thought I was going to get like samples, which would have been fine. But I got 6 full bottles. I was like, holy cow. Those bottles are behind these bottles. So I got another layer of bottles back there. Scott and I did a live stream, and we went through them and had a really good time. So I went through the list of distilleries in Scotland, and I went and looked how many, and my list may not be complete. I might need to update it. How many of those distilleries in Scotland are there that as far as I can tell, I can only get them through the SMWS? I counted 31 distilleries that I want to experience, I want to study. And so, you know what? I'm joining the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. At least 31 producers. There may be more. So I paid my own money to join the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. And what I'm doing tonight is we're just giving a sneak peek of a recent order. I ordered 6 bottles. I'm going to stick with the Scotch Malt Whisky Society tradition. I'm not going to tell you what distilleries they are, but these are all distilleries that I can't get here in the United States. And later on, I'm going to do a more full in-depth review of these. Probably won't be till next year. I'll do the history, production. And if you're a follower of my channel, you know how I do videos. I'm going to do them like I've been doing in my recent series. So I'll go more in depth on those. Also, you know, these bottles could probably use a little aeration, but really looking forward to that. So sort of an introduction to here. I'm going to bring on my guest, Scott, because I've been jibber-jabbering for about 7 minutes. And hey, Scott.
Erik, how are you?
Great. Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you keep regular hours, if you're a 9 to 5er, or if your schedule's sort of all over the place.
I'm salaried, so I work whenever I have to, they say.
Right. Okay.
Morning, night, afternoon, weekends.
There you go. So you probably don't have to get up too early in the morning.
Early enough, yeah. Unfortunately.
Well, if you have meetings with people in the UK and they're 8 or 9 hours ahead of us, I imagine you might have an early morning.
Yeah, we've only done that a couple of times, and they'll be midday usually. So they're, I think right now, 6 hours ahead of us.
Okay.
Or 5 or 6 right now.
So just real quick here, Tom R, thanks for popping in early. Scotch Malt Whisky Society of America. Is that Ben?
No, that's me.
Oh, that's you. Okay.
Yeah, I'm signed in. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Here you go. James Morgan, thank you very much for tuning in. G Host, thanks for tuning in. I know a lot of people are probably surprised I'm going on midweek. Grumpy Old Fart, thanks for tuning in. Scotch Whisky Society of Scotch Malt Whisky Society of America. Is there a plan to have a club located in Florida, Orlando? That's a good question. I mean, not just in terms of Florida, but anywhere in the United States. And I think I may have asked this question before. There's what we call clubs, or they call vaults or whatever. Is there any plans to put here in the United States?
Well, so that's a question we get a lot, and there's so many ins and outs with liquor laws, regulations in the states, and that's the only reason we don't have them right now, like the members only rooms in the UK. You know, their liquor regulations are a lot more open. Okay. Ours, and just state to state, every state's allowed to do whatever they want. It's really complicated from the way I understand. I do believe they're looking at, and this is just my opinion, not official, so don't hold me to the fire on this one, but I think we're looking at maybe trying to do something in the New York area, but I don't know where we're at in that process.
Okay.
Now we do have, what we used to call partner bars, bars that would feature our whiskeys that we work with. And we're always looking to, expand there and get more of those collaborations going with bars. But again, it's state to state, and how buying the liquor, and is there a wholesaler involved, and,
so there's
blah, blah, blah.
There's 2 of those here in the San Francisco Bay Area. There's one in San Francisco and there's one in San Jose. I haven't visited either one of them yet, but plan to in the near future. I'm sort of where I live, sort of halfway between those 2. terms of where I live. Where I live is probably closer to San Francisco, but where I work is closer to San Jose. So it just depends what I'm going to do on the weekend or after work. But yeah, there's two of those. So in addition, so outside of, you know, an official SMWS place, you try to find some partner bars. Is there a link to those on the SMWS website?
Yeah. Real quick, I can look. It's if you go to
I think that's where I saw them.
Yeah. I am 21 years old. Yes.
Really?
I know, hard to believe. And
I've been 21 a couple times. Why are you looking up? I'm gonna start introducing the whiskeys that I'll be tasting tonight. I'll put a ticker up here, Scott Bruno style. But I also have pictures.
Real quick on the web page, if you go to About, and then there's one on tab for members rooms, and then where to find us.
Okay.
So, locations there.
Okay. So this is the first one I'm doing. This is a dark and tropical path, cask number 46.12. It's a Speyside Ex-Bourbon, 59.8% alcohol by volume, and $125. $125. And I got the information down the ticker. Now, I just recently bought these, I would say within the last month. So I just recently got these. I think these arrived about a week ago. So I don't know if they're all still available yet. Some of these may still be available. Some may be sold out by now. So if you want to see if these are available, if any of these I talked to are sparking interest, check out the website and see if they're on there. But, you know, they're limited releases. This one is 196. Wow, this is bottle number one of 196. So I bought
they all just say one. It's just one of, yeah. That's not the number one bottle.
That's what you tell that. This is a special bottle. This is a special bottling. I have the number one. So anyway, well, that doesn't help. Anyway, so and if you want to know what distillery it is, I'm sticking with, just for the sake of this the spirit of the day, I'm going to just stick with Scotch Malt Whisky Society policy is that they don't tell you what distillery is, so you can look it up. But I can tell you, what I can tell you is this is a distillery that I haven't studied yet. I don't have anything from, and it's not otherwise available. I can tell you that much.
You can say it if you want to. You're on your channel, Erik. You can call it out.
Okay. We're gonna teach Scott something here. Curiosity. People are like, what is that? I gotta find out. People, you gotta give them a little bit of curiosity, give them a little bit of information, give them a little bit of mystery. You know, you don't when you meet, well, you're married, but if you're meeting the ladies or whatever, you don't pull it all out there. You gotta give them a little something, and then leave a little mystery, so they're more curious and they want to come back. That's my philosophy anyway.
Hey, real quick, I'd make clear too that I did not send you these whiskeys. You purchased these whiskeys with your own money,
right?
Yeah,
So I made it up front. Okay, so I paid for my own membership and I bought these bottles. The ones that we reviewed on the SMWS website, those were a gift to me. I don't know how much the total price was. I didn't look them all up, but I'm probably in the neighborhood. This was about $800 total. In that ballpark for all of these. I'm gonna imagine. I know it was under 1,000, so it's probably about $800. And imagine the ballpark figure for those ones was about the same. So 6 bottles was about $800. So I got 6 for free. I just bought 6 out of my own pocket, plus I paid for my own membership. And I just want to say that because I don't want people thinking, oh, Erik's on the toll and they're using Erik to push their stuff and he's becoming part of their advertising. No, not at all. I don't have Patreons because I want to pay for. I don't want to feel obligated to somebody else to do something, and I'm paying for myself. If somebody else has Patreons, don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying I decided not to. All right. So on the nose, and this is so Scott has some of these, and he doesn't have some of them.
I don't. Yeah. So I don't have this one, so I can't share it with you. But
right. So I can say anything I want. You'd never know the difference. So vanilla cream. I would say it's very citrusy. A lot of lemon. It's a dusty lemon. So you ever get lemon drops? And we used to get lemon drops, and they're in little cans, little tins.
Mm-hmm.
I think they cherry. You could also get in the tins, and they put them in powdered sugar. It might have been so that they wouldn't stick together. So I think they use like a powdered sugar, so all the little lemon drops won't stick together in the nice, neat, in the fun little tin. I haven't seen those in a long time. I just remember my dad buying those, and we'd pawn them off my dad. So when you first open that can and you get the lemon drop, and there's sort of a poof of powdered sugar, I get that. Or if you ever make lemon bars, my brother Adam makes really good lemon bars. It was something he would bring to Thanksgiving or whatever, or family events. He'd make these lemon bars, and he had like powdered sugar on top.
Yeah,
I'm getting something like that.
Yeah, there was an old recipe. I think it was a Paula Deen recipe for those. It had like 6 sticks of butter in them and 6.
Oh yeah, the whole place it's butter, and then you add some butter,
and
then butter, and then put a little powdered sugar on it. There you go.
Sugar, yeah. It's just good. It's just good.
There you go. Paula Deen, or my name's it's Paula Butter Dean, by the way. That's her middle name. Well, that's southern fine cuisine. It's got a nice floral note. Powdered sugar. You get a sense of the malty, grainy character. It reminds me of either when you first open a box of Cheerios, or you just finish the box of Cheerios, and like a cloud of Cheerio dust comes out. It's kind of like that. Wow. All right. So excuse me. Don't breathe and talk while you're sipping. So I titled this live stream, "Everything You Want to Know About the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, but We're Afraid to Ask." So I do want to ask Scott some questions, and some maybe he doesn't know, or we have to defer, or somebody has to keep it a secret. One of them, in fact, before we went live, I invited Ben, but Ben's not available. Some of these he might have to answer. So the first question, maybe it's really not so much of an SMWS question. It's more of a personal question, which is, so most of us whiskey tubers, we do something else for 8 hours a day. And we're, computer people or whatever else we do. And then we come home, and our whiskey life, you want to call it that, is separate from our being a plumber or a police officer or whatever else we do. When you're working in the industry, whether it's even a wine, because I know guys, they're studying for exams, for sommelier exams, but they're working in a restaurant, and so they're around wine all the time, and they're into wine after work, or if they're working in a winery, and so you have to constantly be tasting casks and knowing when something is ready, or when it get bottled, or is it going to go wonky. And so when you come home, you don't necessarily feel like, okay, I'm going to go home and now drink some wine with dinner, because that's what you've been doing all day. So being a whiskey tuber and work and so forth, how has that sort of been in maintaining the Whiskey Tuber channel, because you're not abandoning Bart,
right?
And also being the SNWS guy.
Yeah. Well, and that was one thing I looked at, and I got on with SMWS last year, and I was retiring from my first career, and I was kind of like, I want to get into whiskey, but what part of the whiskey world enthuses me? And right. SMWS was at the top of my list for some reasons that you've already mentioned, and that is the number of distilleries that we work with. I mean, we work with 98% of the distilleries out there. There's only a few that don't sell single cask whiskeys. So, if I want to talk about Ardbeg or Laphroaig or Glentalkers, Glendronach, Macallan, I mean, I can, with the Scotch Test Dummies, there's no conflict of interest there. We work with all these distilleries, and and that's what I liked about it too, though. If say I got a job with Macallan, if I became a Macallan rep, well, you can only talk about Macallan or, the whiskeys in their profile. And I didn't like that aspect of that. And so the SMWS really, I was driven towards SMWS just because of the variety and the fact that we do work with all those distilleries. But it's actually been a little bit more, I'm pretty busy with the SMWS, and Bart and I getting together has been at times it's a little tough trying to make time to get together, like you say, outside of the job and get those reviews filmed. So, and we're coming up on 9 years now. We started October 2013.
Wow.
So our 5-year anniversary that you was here for was 4 years ago.
Wow. Time flies, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to see you next week down in Austin.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So we'll be at the Bachelor's Ball next week. I'll be going live from the Crowded Barrel, the Fang and Feather tasting room at the Crowded Barrel Friday night, 5 o'clock Central Time. So really, really looking forward to that. And then we all take turns going live on Saturday, September 10th, from the Bachelor's Ball. But yeah, really, we're looking forward to it. Roy Aquavite is going to be there. He wasn't there last year due to travel restrictions and all that. So looking forward to seeing Brother Roy again. And I'm just really, really looking forward. I think it's going to be a really, really a good time. So what about the liver management, not just time management, but liver management, and how do you do all that?
I think I drink a lot less whiskey now than I did, just because I drink more with the SMWS. I mean, it used to be my daily routine is get off of work at nighttime before bed, have a couple drinks of whiskey, probably, 99 out of 100 nights. And now there's really not near, maybe 1 night, 2 nights a week do I drink whiskey, just because of how much I'm drinking between the SMWS, and the Scotch test dummies. So I think really I've cut back on that. My beer consumption has gone up because I drink more beer.
Okay, interesting.
Or a little bit of tequila here and there.
Okay. What? No wine?
No wine. That's not on my list.
No.
No.
I just started getting into porters and ales. I'm not a beer guy. I don't need another Erik Wait beer study channel.
Yeah.
But I like the darker ones. Although the funny thing is, and when we're talking about beers too much, I find the stouts aren't sweet enough and the porters are too sweet.
Huh.
So it's almost like but they're both dark. It's almost like I need to take a porter and a stout and then blend the two to get a happy medium between the two.
Yeah.
So on the palate, it's pretty much similar on the palate as on the nose. It's a little more sweet. It's delicate. It's definitely citrus forward. Nice vanilla, a little bit of that sort of powdered sugar note, and the malted character shows up on the back end. In some ways, because I'm going to talk about wine, if you're familiar with a California Chardonnay, there's a long range. You can do a Chardonnay that's completely unoaked, all stainless steel, that will be very austere, and you're going to get crisp apple. You can have it with neutral oak, which will sort of round the edges on the sharpness of a Chardonnay. If you do get a Chardonnay that's from a warmer climate, you start getting into more peach in there, and you go really, really warm climate, like the Central Valley, you get more tropical notes. This is like a Chardonnay that has very light on the malolactic, so you don't get all the buttery notes necessarily, but it's done in stainless steel with a little bit of neutral oak. And the quality-wise, and I'm thinking of, again, I know people know wines. Hanzel's one of my favorite Chardonnay producers with the oldest vines here in California. In terms of the way the profile comes across, but with a little added maltiness, the fruit character is very similar to Hanzel's Chardonnay. So anyway, there you go. That's another way of describing it. So let me bring up the next one. I get a lot of buttons to push. Okay, I'm going to take that one off. Put that one on. There we go. And so the next picture.
That one I do have, so I'll share that one with you.
Ah, cool. So this is Yellow Smash, cask number 48.130, Speyside first fill ex-bourbon cask, 60.6% alcohol by volume, under $100, $95. So just a quick question. So, and for those who don't know, so the 48 refers to the distillery, correct?
Yes.
And the 130 refers to the bottling?
That would be the 130th cask that we got from Distillery 48.
Okay. I kind of figured it was the bottling and one was a cask. So if you're looking up line to find out who it is, it's Distillery number 48, and this is the 130th bottle. All righty. So this one, just color-wise, I didn't show up the other one, slightly, because the camera's way in the hell out there, slightly darker, but though it's even like the color of a Chardonnay. What do you get on this one?
This is one that, okay, yeah, and a lot of people are going to look at that and they're going to be like, oh, it's an 8-year-old whiskey. I'm not. Why would I drink that? And this is a good example of why right here, because blind, you would never think this was an 8-year-old whiskey. But on the nose, I mean, this is in our spicy and sweet. We've got 12 flavor profiles, color coded. This is spicy and sweet, and all over the nose is just black pepper, spice, cinnamon, nice oak.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of even a burnt caramel.
Yeah, the first fill bourbon cask is making its presence known.
Yeah.
So again, Chardonnay, that the oak influence there, even with the cinnamon and some vanillas and the spiciness there. There are California Chardonnays, and there's, Oregon Chardonnays and Burgundy Chardonnays, but in terms of general profile, this comes more across on the nose like a California Chardonnay. So whereas the other one's getting more of a powdered sugar, I get just a little bit of baseball card bubble gum. No. Juicy fruit. The yellow, the yellow bubble chewing gum. I get a little bit of that.
Yeah.
A little bit of that.
Little floor. There's a nice little floor on this and some berries as well on the nose on this one.
Yeah.
Grumpy Old Fart is asking me, I had COVID. I had original COVID back in late 2020, and I lost my taste for, 4 to 6 weeks, I think. And my smell was gone for months. And it finally started coming back, I think January or February of this year. So almost 14, 15, 16 months in, my smell completely returned, but I still have smell distortion.
Oh,
really pungent odors don't smell anything like they should. Still,
so I can fart around you and you'd never notice.
I know. Well, I'm gonna smell it, but it won't smell like a fart. It'll be like it's a strong chemical smell.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it's weird. And that's almost 2 years in, because it's October 2020.
Now, can you calibrate yourself as you remembering what whiskey smelled like before and after, and notice any difference?
Well, I think with whiskey that all came back, and it was slow. And I was actually doing a series of videos, kind of documenting it to see.
Oh, okay.
And Bart and I took, 4 or 5 months off because I couldn't smell and I couldn't taste. And it was April of 21. I finally said, "Hey, we need to start shooting some videos," even though I still couldn't smell. And I said, we haven't posted anything in so long. We fell out of the YouTube algorithm and everything. We basically were almost starting over from scratch. But we would shoot a video and we'd say, "Hey, I had COVID and my senses are still muted, so you're going to have to trust Bart, unfortunately,
right,
for notes."
So, talking about in terms of the category, it's sweet and spicy, or what's the category again?
Yeah, spicy and sweet.
I know you didn't have the first one. I had to. The spiciness really jumps out when compared to the first one. And without even having to say that, if I was going to categorize it, that's exactly how I would have categorized it, because it is really, really spicy, but it's definitely that oak spice. If you're a bourbon lover, it depends on what part of a bourbon you like. But in terms of the intensity of the spice and the oak spices, this definitely delivers on that. But I would say I get, whereas the first one was more citrusy, this one I get a little bit more apple. Citrus is there as well, but I get a little bit more apple on this one. Yeah.
A lot of those like you mentioned with the bourbon notes, though, the cinnamons, the caramels, a little bit of vanilla. I did get a little bit of malty or a nice maltiness on this too. Probably the youth of it showing a little bit here. But yeah, nice spiciness and nice fruits, and even apples. I'd still stick with a little bit of some berries and stuff in there too, and not just lighter citrus notes.
So let me ask you another question. So, there's book knowledge, which you guys don't spend a whole lot of time on. You and Bart. We don't do the studying, so you have to.
That's right.
So, but I just got another whiskey book today. I just picked it up from the post office. just to write them, or I'm expanding my library of whiskey books. And I'm planning on writing a couple of them. I have ideas for writing whiskey books, which I know you'll never read, but whatever. So
I've got a few.
You learn from books, you learn from audio, listen to podcasts, learn from videos, and then learn from visiting distilleries and so forth. So there's different ways in which you can learn different things. Some people don't want to spend thousands of dollars taking a class down in Texas. It's okay, great. You can take that money and go to Scotland or Ireland or somewhere or Kentucky and learn, from empirical knowledge there. What would you say in the time in which you've spent with the SWS? What do you think are some highlights of things something you really learned about whiskey maybe that you didn't know before?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I've learned more, different wine cask finishing, what those bring, a little bit more on distillation methods or, the different stills that are used. I think my knowledge base coming in was pretty decent, but no, admittedly, I still need to do a little bit of book smarts, wouldn't hurt. So Bart and I, we've learned more from, our viewers and our fans and people commenting and correcting us when we're wrong or just telling us, about something. And that's a great way with YouTube to learn as well. Really,
yeah.
People will tell you. So sometimes it's wrong though. So you kind of do got to say, okay, well, somebody said this. Let's find out if that's right or not.
Well, the funny thing is, and I've made posts on my Facebook about this. I found information in books that was incorrect.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, in the very books that are supposed to be textbooks for my current studies, I find things that are wrong. And I've underlined them, snap pictures of them, and post them in Facebook. Hey, this information is incorrect. Yeah. But that's why and even online sources could be online, could be incorrect. So you have to kind of look at multiple different sources, then start asking questions. And then some of them are more like dogmatic opinions than they are really facts. So you have to kind of sift through that as well. So, but in terms of, we think, do you approach whiskey any differently in terms of smelling, tasting like that? Or are you more or less sort of carried the same approach that you had before?
No, I think it's all pretty much the same. But with the SMWS, everything being cask strength, I definitely go 2 rounds of water, if not 3. Which a lot of times with off the shelf whiskeys, when you're drinking something at 40, 45, 46%, sometimes you hate to add water to those, or sometimes 1 round of water is all you do. But what's this one? 60.6%. I mean, you can go 2-3 rounds of water with this one, and you're still starting to show you things.
So there will be a time in the future, probably won't be until 2023. I'll go through these whiskeys again when I'm doing an in-depth study of the distillery, and by that time I'll spend more time with them. I just, in fact, before we went live, I was just popping the corks and pouring them into bottles just before we went live. So these are all neck pours, and I say it all the time. I don't judge a whiskey by a neck pour. Even though it's fantastic as they are now, I'm finding as I spend more time with them, they get better and better and better, which leads me to my next question. Hold on, let me get into my next whiskey. Let me change, pushing buttons here. Hide that one. I'm going to switch to this one. My next whiskey is going to be this one, Summer Garden Curiosity, cask number 63.83. So distillery number 63, and this is their 83rd cask. It's another first of all Ex-Bourbon cask from Speyside, 61.9% alcohol by volume, and $105. Seriously, look at $105, cask strength, non-filtered, natural color. Someone tell me where you're going to find, and whatever the distillery is, you're going to find that on your shelf or anywhere else. Where are you going to find that on the market for $105? Ardbeg, I've been a little upset with Ardbeg recently. I trust you. I trust you. You can buy, for the amount you would pay for firm mutation, you can buy 2 of these and be a lot happier. So anyhow, all right. So for the third one, that's Scott's digging around.
Well, that brings to mind, I really do think our price point is damn good. So to show you one example, a few months ago, this was a 25-year-old that we had finished in an Ex-Sauternes barrique, 52.6% ABV. Rara Avis was the name of this one, 25 years old, and it was $255. And even then, I challenged people. I said, go into any liquor store, find a 25-year-old whiskey, single cask.
What's the distillery?
This one is a 112.83.
Okay, whatever that is. Okay.
Yeah, somebody will look it up. But for $255, a 25-year-old single malt at cask strength, finished in a Sauternes barrique. I'm like, you can't find that.
Right.
We did. Last month we had a 31-year-old single malt, single cask, had been exclusively matured in Oloroso sherry casks. It was delicious. And I think it was $800. A 31-year-old.
Okay.
Cask strength.
And I got Fabian says here, I'm juggling buttons, I'm juggling bottles, I'm juggling pop-up things and interacting with Scots. It's kind of a challenge. But Fabian says, I will wait an opportunity to ask a couple questions to you, Erik, when and if you have the time. So Fabian, right now, go ahead and put in your question and I'll bring it up. Go ahead and put in your question and I will bring it up. So go put your question there and I'll keep an eye on it. So I'm not using, so StreamYard doesn't light up my name when you say my name, whereas YouTube does. So I have to sort of try extra hard. So Fabian, put a question down there and I will bring it. We'll try to get to it as soon as we can. All righty. So on this one's similar to the previous one. Did you have this one?
Yep, I've got this one with you. And this is juicy oak and vanilla profile by the blue color on it. 61.9%. First fill ex-bourbon barrel finish on this one.
So because we have another first fill bourbon barrel, you expect some similarities.
What's fun is that juicy oak and vanilla, though, and the spicy, the one prior to this was the spicy and sweet profile. There can be quite a bit of difference between the two. And this one definitely more citrusy, lighter.
Yeah.
More almost like a toasted vanilla.
The other one, it's not as spicy.
Almost honeycomb.
Yeah, it's more honey.
Yeah. Definitely not near as spicy as the previous.
So if someone wants to pop a question there, go ahead. I'll try to keep an eye out open for it. So are there any so here's my next question until we get till someone pops in a question. Are there any distilleries that you've experienced while working for the SMWS that you had never experienced before?
Yeah. I was going through my list here. So topping it, now I had a sample of Longmorn before, but since I've joined the society, I've been able to try several Longmorns, and that's a gorgeous distillery. Glen Turret, Inchgower, Ben Rennis, Daluane, Glen Lossy, Balmanock, Strathisla, Tianinic.
Okay, and just those distilleries right there. When was the last time you seen on one of those in your local whiskey shop or local liquor store?
I know. Yeah, and that's just really. I mean, there's still several more after that, but and then like you pointed out, there's so many distilleries, so many whiskeys that the SMWS gets that you won't find. You can't find on a shelf, and a lot of them, are used in blends, or it's even there is one. No, I can't remember which one it is now. I was thinking of that they do the bottling in Scotland, but there's only the one release of it.
So this, in terms of fruit character, is somewhat similar to the previous two. I find it a little bit more creamy. It's not as sharply spicy, although the spice from the first fill bourbon cask is definitely there. It's not as powdery sugary as the first one. There's a light creme brulee, toasty. When they do the creme brulee and they toasted that top, and it's that kind of toasty top to it. You get a little more of a creme brulee character. So it's like it's like a Chardonnay that's gone through batonnage. You know what batonnage is?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so a Chardonnay that's aged on the lees, that's the yeasts, imparts some yeasty character to a wine, and that's called surly. Now when you stir those yeasts to really mix it in there, which gives you more of that toasty character, some of the toasty character along with the oak and that character, that's called batonnage. So they basically take a stirring thing, put it through the bunghole, and then go like this, and it goes bop-a-da, 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 and bop-a-da. The stir down is called batonnage. It's a French word.
Huh.
And so this comes a little bit across like a Chardonnay that's gone through batonnage. All right. So Mark Lambert asks, and you may not have these stats. So the question is, and we might have to go all the way back to someone at headquarters. How much stock does SMWS own? And that sort of relates to supply and demand. There's some odd 30,000 members of Scotch Malt Whisky Society, although obviously not all 30,000 are buying bottles every day or even every week. Most people are probably occasional buyers. With the rising popularity of Scotch whiskey, of course, we know Springbank. Everybody's complaining that they're having problems finding Springbank. And one of the questions I had a question which you didn't think you'd be able to answer. You thought Ben might be able to answer is the relationship between SMWS and the producers. Is if you're a producer, you can produce so much out of your stills. You have a certain maximum capacity, but they're not always running at maximum capacity. And then your ability to acquire casks, and then the time you're going to spend aging casks, and how much room and where you're going to put the casks. Ardbeg Distillery, for example, just opened another still house so they can ramp up production. Tomatin right now is not running at full production, but they could they have the ability to quadruple their production. So then the question is, is there any possibility, any danger that the supply and demand might come around such that SMWS is having challenges getting the casks they used to be able to get?
That's a good question. Yeah. And I think it's nothing we won't know till that time gets here in the future. But I know we do have a warehouse in Scotland. I know it's thousands of casks. I want to say I'd heard there's over 10,000 casks. Don't hold me to that one. I'm not sure. I think that's one number I've heard along the way that we have, currently aging at this time.
Okay. So yeah, so if I ever get over to Scotland and get an opportunity to ask that question, it's more in terms. So the business side, you got to go. This is how many casks we have. This is the rate at which we're selling. And so you have to sort of be able to forecast what's our holdings going to be and supply going to be. What's the rate in which people are joining and leaving the SMWS? What is the rate in which we're adding members? So all those factoids, we need graphs with little jiggy lines and pie charts. Scott, you don't have any pie charts available?
I do not.
Okay, and little graphs and increases. But those are kind of questions we kind of have. And it may be, because it may be they have all that information and they're not going to reveal it. They don't have to tell us everything. But I am kind of curious about that. But not just in terms of SMWS, but as part of the bigger picture of the future of Scotch whiskey. I did this whole series on the history of Scotch whiskey, and there's booms and busts and different reasons for booms and busts and availability. And of course, when you have demand and low supply, prices go up, or when you have a big bust and there's not so much consumer for whatever reason, whether it's war, prohibition, whatever, and then not so much demand, but you got high supply, prices go down and distilleries start closing. That's just, that's a thumbnail sketch of the history of Scotch whiskey. So then the question does come in, is just as a curiosity, a historical perspective, I wonder how is the future looking for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, and what's their projections? Yeah, have you heard anything talk about that?
No, I'm not high enough on the depth chart for those conversations.
Okay. I'm just curious. More because it's going to give me a perception. Some people would want those questions in order to know, hey, what can they buy and hoard? That's not me. I'm more in terms of using whiskey as a barometer for understanding history.
Yeah.
And perceiving history and the flow of history. So thus far, I like all three of these, but thus far the second one is my favorite.
Yeah, a little bit more just punch on the palate. That spicy and sweet profile just kind of really had a lot going on.
But they're all really nice whiskeys. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to bring up the next one. All right. I got to take that thing off. All right. Take that one away. Add that one. Oh, I got to take a comment thingy off. Hold on. Where'd it go?
One thing you're going to start seeing the SMWS doing, though, too, is really branching out and finishing whiskeys more on our own.
Oh,
just with our cask selections, the casks that we're getting, that we're using, the whiskeys that we have. And you're just going to see, I mean, a lot of independent bottlers, they buy a cask of whiskey. Maybe they bottle it at that time.
Right.
They wait a couple of years and they bottle it. And they're not really kind of branching out and getting into that where they're, doing special finishes and trying different things. Even with our blended batches that we've done, the last one.
Oh, okay.
Right here, I was drinking it before. I'm batch 16, Full Bloom, which was finished in Australian Muscat barrel.
Okay, so let me ask you a question about blends, but I'm going to pop this one up real quick. Cover this, and I'm going to ask you about the blends, but let me get this up real quick. Amuse your Bouche. Cask number 71, so it's distillery number 71, bottling number 83 from distillery 71. It's a Speyside first fill ex-bourbon cask, 56.7% alcohol by volume, and the ticker is in the way. I think that says 110, but the ticker is sort of in the way. But I'm pretty good.
110.
I think it says. Oh yeah, the ticker says 110. All right. This is my fourth one. All right, so. I've watched the live stream. You had that one with the Muscat, and I was making comments about what Muscat is. And there's different kinds of Muscat is a family of grapes, not just a singular grape. And then, of course, there's French Muscats and Italian Muscats, and American, Australian, South American, and of course, where you're growing these grapes is going to have an impact on as well. There's actually red and rosé Muscats, and there's black Muscats, and there's orange sort of Muscats. Anyways, so when you say Muscat, that's like saying cat. Or dog, it's like there's a big family of them. So I haven't tried any blends from SMWS. So are they buying different casks and they're doing the blending?
So this one actually was at least the second one when they started. This is batch 16, not blended batch 16. When these started, it was blended batch 1, blended batch 2, blended batch 3. At some point, we did Douro Cruise a few months ago, and there may have been one before Douro Cruise.
Douro Cruise? What's that?
It was port. It's a port finished.
Oh, okay. Oh, Douro. Okay, the Douro. Okay.
Douro
Cruise. I thought you get on a ship and you go down to the Caribbean.
No, this was a 10-year-old, and we even didn't catch it at first. We were even referring to this as blended batch, or a blended batch and blended batch 14. Well, once we got it and we're looking at it and reviewing it, it says single malt Scotch whiskey on it. And it's not blended. So it's all from one distillery.
Okay.
Yeah, just several casks from one distillery, all, single malts. So it's not a blend. It wasn't a blended batch. It was a single malt whiskey. Which is the same thing that happened with batch 16.
Okay.
This was all from a Speyside distillery. And I don't remember which one. I know when we were doing when Jen and I were doing the live stream, some people had researched it, I think through the UK website, and found out which distillery it was. But this one's still single malt whiskey. It's 18 years old. So just several casks from one distillery were combined and finished in those Muscat wine barriques, and it was really gorgeous. That was a great whiskey.
No, I just noticed in my notes on all these bottles, I have been failing to put in the age statements. I just noticed that. Oops. Sorry about that. I just know I don't have it on there. All right. So this one, so the fourth one, 2, 3, 4. This is a 10-year-old. All right. So Amuse Your Bouche is a 10-year-old. The previous one, I gotta be careful not to knock these over, was an 8. Previous before that was an 8, and then the first one was an 11. So I made a little oops and put in age statements. But basically, we're looking. Everything tonight is between 8 and 12 years old. So we do have a 10, a 12, and 11 coming up. So that's my oops. But you can see on the picture. You might be able to see on the picture on the bottle when I bring the picture up.
I think we've we've mentioned it with each bottle as well. It might not be on your ticker, but I think we've talked about the age on there on each one. And that's one thing with our single cask is we'll put the age on there. You know, the ABV is on there. They're non-chill filtered. They're not watered down. They're cask strength. We'll put our barrels on there, whatever they were aged in and or even finished in. So a lot of transparency on our end. And even the website will tell you how long. A lot of times if you have a 12-year-old that's been finished, it'll tell you on the website it's 10 years in a first fill ex-bourbon cask and 2 years in a, Oloroso sherry or whatever the secondary cask was.
Right. And I don't know if you know this, Scott, but the age statement's right here, and it matches the color of the cask.
That's right.
So for those who know, when I went live, and it's stupid me, when I went live with Scott on the Scotch Malt Whisky Society channel, then they put the age statements in the bottle, and Scott's like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "Yeah, it's right there." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Anyway, so this is a 10-year-old.
I'd forgot about that. You did do that, yeah.
Oops. I don't care.
I thought you was messing with me. You're like, "Do you guys release the ages of these?" And I was like, "Yeah, we do."
I'm the smartest stupid person I know.
You mean besides the one that's right on the label? Yeah.
So, and this is one you don't have, correct?
I don't have that one. No, I poured a little bit of that rare Avis, that 25-year-old finished in the Sauternes barrique.
So we were looking at citrus. We were looking at citrus with heavy spice. We're looking at probably a little bit more apple and creme brulee. I'm going down the line here and some of the differences. These aren't like radically different, but there are these nuanced differences between them, particularly when you're talking ex-bourbon cask, ex-bourbon cask. Now, typically when SMWS does a live stream, I chose these bottles based on the distillery, based on what I want to study. Typically, they'll do ex-bourbon cask, some sherry cask, and usually wrap it up with a peated cask, or peated, not peated cask, but peated whiskey. So there's a lot more variation typically in a Scotch Malt Whisky Society live stream than I'm doing tonight. These are much more similar, but these were bought because of the distillery that I want to study. So this one, it's funny. Some of these were more tingly on the nose. This one less so, even though it's got a good ABV going on there. I'm getting a little bit of that yellow chewing gum character, some apple, some vanilla. A little bit of caramel, nice maltiness. Creamier on the palate than the other ones. Real nice development. Spice is showing up more on the back end, and it's a moderate spice in compared to the other one. All right, so I got a quiz question for you, Scott.
Hi.
All right, you ready? Hold on. So this whiskey is called Amuse Your Bouche. Here's the quiz question. What is a bouche? A, an alternative form of bush. B, a small pastry case filled with a savory mixture served as an hors d'oeuvre or hors d'oeuvre, if you want to say, or an hors d'oeuvre. C, an allowance of food and drink for the tables of inferior officers or servants in a nobleman's palace or court. Or D, from the French, bouchée, meaning mouthful. All right, everybody put in your answers here. Sorry, I don't have a prize to give away. I wish I did. What I want to see what everybody's answers are. Is an alternative form of the word bush? Bush? Is it a pastry case? Is it an allowance for food and drink for tables at inferior officers or servants in no one's palace or court? Or is it the French bouche, meaning a mouthful? I got D, 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 D. A lot of D's here. A lot of D's here. Mark Lambert says D.
I would have guessed C.
Okay. Scott is saying C. And the other answers here.
While they're doing that real quick, there was a question. Mark Lambert asked, what are the differences between the UK and the US clubs? Different tasting panels from the same cask sources? So no, there's the mother. So UK is the mothership. They oversee and run everything. There's one tasting panel that's in the UK. They approve and basically release all of the whiskeys, and then we fight over with them who's getting what casks, basically. So
okay,
and some are shared.
Okay, so drum roll. Sorry, I don't want to hit the table too hard. The answer is all the above. Those are all various meanings of the bouche or bouche. Yeah, of bouche. Those are all meanings of the word bouche. So if you guessed any one of those, you were correct. I didn't put
Jen Currens is correcting you as well there. Yeah.
What do you say? Bouche?
No, it's Bouche.
Bouche. Oh, femme de bouche. So femme de bouche is my French is horrible. Femme de bouche means shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Anyway, so that's what bouche.
I went with the multiple choice trick answers. When you don't know, choose C.
Yeah. Or the one that seems extremely long for some reason. And overly detailed. So amuse your mouth. Yeah. So grumpy old fart is right. So the idea is amuse your mouthfeel. So bouche. I like boucher, All right. So that's what that word means. I had to Google it, and then I thought to myself, I've been told femme de bouche. So I should have known that one to begin with, but I didn't pick up that was French.
I like Joe Catter's comment. He says, 2 of my favorite whiskey dudes.
Where is that again?
Joe Catter, up there right before the D's started rolling in.
Oh, I got to scroll up. There we go. Well, thank you very much, sir. 2 of my favorite whiskey dudes. Thank you very much. I would say the same thing if I was watching Scott and Ben, watching them live. 2 of my favorite whiskey dudes. There's something to say about the longevity of hanging in there and being a whiskey tuber. A lot of whiskey tubers have come and gone for whatever reason. I know at least 3 whiskey tubers that are now working in the business, but some it's like they realize, man, this is hard work. There's a lot that goes into this. You got to be in for the long haul. If you're expecting, some people, family, job, whatever reason, economics, there's a lot of reasons why. But the average lifespan of a YouTuber, period, in terms of long-term length, is about 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
So those of us who have passed that line, some of us now we're the old timers, the old timer whiskey tubers.
Yeah, I can say I can remember when you were a wine channel and was just branching out into whiskey.
I've been doing just whiskey for 6 years. Started in April 2016. In April 2016. So I like this, but I still, my favorite one is the second one. So one of the things when we went live and we did, I'm going to bring up the next one real quick so I can sort of talk and multitask here. Hide that one, bring up that one, and show you the image. Here we go. Serial Thriller. Okay, sorry. Serial Thriller, cask number 77. So distillery number 77. This is the 71th cask they've had from Distillery 77. It's a Highland refill ex-bourbon Hogshead, 59.8% alcohol by volume, and $130. This is one of the more expensive that we've had are seen tonight. All right. So when we went live and we were doing neck pours, in fact, I was opening them, I think, as we were going along. Whereas tonight I got a little smarter and opened up ahead of time and put challenge coins. By the way, challenge coins. The first one I should have mentioned. I've one from the Whiskey Tribe, which it's metal and has a nice rim, so it sticks to the glass pretty good. Design wise, it's probably one of the best ones I've got. Here's one. This is from Roy. We mentioned him earlier, Aqua Vitae. And then we got a whole bunch here from, this is one from the 5th anniversary.
Scotch Test Dummies.
Scotch Test Dummies 5th anniversary. And that was probably the first time I met Ben in person. I was there. He put on a really good tasting there. It was over at that steakhouse.
Scotch and Sirloin.
Yeah, Scotch Sirloin, which was awesome. And then I think another one, says I am Cask 3. This is
yeah.
And you still have these?
No, those are all, we're past those.
I don't mean this, but I mean you're still doing coins.
Oh yeah.
You're still doing coins. So I don't know if you noticed, it's starting to show up. I'm going to fuzz back. Bringing sexy back.
I'm gonna tell Jen Currents not to encourage you. She says she's loving how you combine your knowledge of wine with whiskey.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. It's one of my distinctives besides my cherubic charm and shiny bald head. All right. So I started August 1st. I quit shaving with the goal of I want to see how far my beard can go by the time the Bachelor's Ball comes around, and then I'll probably keep it.
You're gonna be shaving it off down there. It's just gonna be hot. You're gonna be like, I ain't keeping this beard.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm only there for a couple of days. I'll be back here with 55 degrees. There's fog every morning, fog every night. Rare to have see the sunshine go down because the fog comes rolling in. Typical San Francisco, which is about 30 miles north. You know, the whole Golden Gate Bridge just gets engulfed with fog in the evening, which then goes out into the bay, heads north into San Pablo Bay and the southern part of the Napa Valley, Los Caneros, which is really important for cooling down the vineyards to maintain acidity. So you want warmth in the day, cool at night, maintain the acidity, heat to get the sugar. And then it also goes out towards Livermore, which is another wine country out there in the East Bay. All right, so that's our topography. So where I'm at is basically cellar room temperature almost all around. Our hottest day that I've seen so far has been 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So I love living here.
Hottest day I've seen so far was 109.
Yeah,
one day.
Well, that's what it was like when I was in Roosevelt near Sacramento. So here's another Cask 3, and then and another from the fifth anniversary. So the coin thing seems to sort of dropped off a little bit in
quite a bit
in popularity.
Yep. Once everybody got like 50 of them, they realized they didn't need any more.
So I've kind of lost track of where I'm at. The second.
Joe Catter is quickly moving up my scale here too. He says, Scott, your partner Bart is a handful of grain short of a full mash bill. Crazy, but funny and entertaining. You got that right, Joe.
I love Bart. We all love Bart. It would be very strange if I just happened to be in Wichita and get pulled over by him. That would be very strange.
Woo! You got to mess up really bad for Bart to pull you over. You've been out there too long.
Oh yeah. Go over there. If I knew it was him, I'd pull in front of him. I'd just start weaving, just to get his attention, to get him pulling me over. So a penal code for CVC is 502. What's a DUI over there?
Well, that's all we call it, DUI. I don't even know what even our local ordinance is for it.
It's a 502 over here. So.
Yeah. A 187.
A 187. Okay.
That's murder, I think. California.
Yeah, I was just saying 187 is I think that's homicide. Not necessarily murder. It could be usually homicide. Yeah. So this one is, I would say, I'm getting more butterscotch. It's getting a little bit more confectionery, Do you have this one?
No, I do not.
Okay. Yeah, so this one's a little more those butterscotch candies. This one's a little, I'd say a little richer. These are a little fruitier. This is a little richer. It is even, I could put it up there, but it's actually slightly darker. The other ones are a little bit more towards of a lemon color. This one's got definitely a lot more of the tan caramel color to it. It's got that nice smell. There's actually a whiff of smoke, but I'm sure it's barrel char going on in the background. A little bit of marshmallow. It just got nice tan to your marshmallow. So it didn't burst into flames. It's not underdone. It's got that nice, you got a nice tan on your marshmallow. Got a little bit of that going on. Do have some lemon. There's a little bit of a Sauvignon Blanc, whereas those are a little bit more like Chardonnay. I'm getting a little bit more of a Sauvignon Blanc, which gets you more into maybe a grapefruit on the palate. Wow.
Good. Must be good.
Yeah. Hands down, thus far, my favorite of the night. I'm glad this is coming up towards the end because you want to have the best for last. Wow. Rich caramel, vanilla, baking spices, creme brulee. Those is it Werther's that makes the butterscotch in the the Werther's butterscotch. There's a richness to us, a richness. The beard comes out, and then my tongue goes. It's got more depth. So some of these are sort of light and airy, and zippy, zingy. Crisp. Is what I get at. This one is richer and slightly darker in tone. Really, really nice thus far. This is my favorite. All right. A question. I'm asking another question. Have you had, well, for me, the aha moment. There's these aha moments we have in our whiskey journey. For me, it started off the Macallan 12, but there's been these times in which you've had a whiskey or, a bourbon or whatever, and you're just like, damn. And it was like a game changer. It was that sort of, I think when you guys dubbed the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, the wow. Mm-hmm. There's been along the way these whiskeys that just really caught your attention. And early on, what put, I wish I could remember the number. I know it was Distillery 3. It was a sample that Ben had given me, 3 point whatever. I have to go back and look it up. That I was just really wow. And it really, Scotch Malt Whisky Society caught my attention. Now, why I didn't join SMWS earlier was because I was focusing on learning distilleries and wanting to know the official bottlings. And then when I realized, well, you can't study every distillery like that because a lot of them don't bottle stuff or they're not available, then that's not going to work for studying every distillery. And as I mentioned earlier before, that's when I realized from an academic standpoint, I don't know how many people, hi, I want to join the Scotch Malt Whisky Society for academic purposes. Probably doesn't happen too often, but it's my primary reason. Have you had any whiskeys that you can remember? It's hard to remember things that were sort of that aha moment, life-changing experience from SWS.
Well, that's just, I think, I think as we get into whiskey more and more, and that palate expands, or you've tried more and more whiskeys, I think it's harder to find those wow whiskeys. There's been a couple, and of course, I mean, they're Oloroso, whiskeys, either finished or matured. That's kind of my favorite profile. But lately, one of them is that Distillery 53 rare release that we just had for the festival. It's an 8-year-old, and that's Kalila. So, and it was finished for 3 years in Oloroso sherry butts. That was a gorgeous whiskey. I mean, that's just one of a few. But yeah, I mean, it's.
And then so recently you did one I remember it was one bottle per person. It was sold for about $180. I think it was an 18-year-old from Macallan.
Well, not for 18. We've had a 12 and a 13-year, couple 12s and 13s.
I'm probably confusing the $180 with the 18.
No, I think it was $180. That one was delicious. That one was very good. That was and I've had several that Macallan's Distillery 24. I've had several. That's probably the best Macallan cask that I've had from
right.
That was a phenomenal bottle.
So that would be it's kind of I've had this happen with the wine thing. I taste so many good wines. I taste wines that people will never ever have. I've added I know people I'm talking a foreign language here. There's 5 first growths of Bordeaux from the 1855 classification. I've been to 4 of those chateaux. They're not open to the public. And the other one, Chateau Latour, that I hadn't been to, but I've had bottles of. 99.99% of your people who like wine are never ever going to have these wines. They're just too damn expensive. They're too rare. They're too hard to find. It gets ridiculous. There's a sense in which we live a very blessed life in what we're able to experience and taste. And you can almost I don't become blasé, but you can become numb to the fact, and you have to kind of stop yourself and realize, you know what? Life is good. Life is awesome. And I'm really thankful for these experiences, for the whiskeys and the people we get to meet along the way. It's really you're very unique. And the word privilege gets so misused these days, and people throw it on to anybody. But it's really a blessing to have this life. But you can also take it for granted. Like so many people take. I tell people who get totally down on America, and I have my own criticisms of our government, but go to another freaking country. Go to some third world country, south, particularly south of the border. Go to a country that ends with the word "stan." And you will come back and you will kiss the ground. Or try going over to Russia with some marijuana and see what happens to you. They'll throw your ass in prison and you may not ever get out. All right. And you're talking smack about the United States. Well, guess what? Hey, have a good time in Russia. All right. Sorry, I'm getting political here. Well, in that same sort of vein is you can become so accustomed to tasting great things as an everyday experience that you forget to stop and say, you know what? Let's take a minute and say, this is a real awesome experience that most people will never have. And I have to stop and just be thankful for this time we have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep. You're supposed to say amen or say, amen, brother. Yeah. So anyway, all right. So thus far, if someone's gonna, and I haven't gotten to the last one yet, but thus far, if someone's gonna buy one of these, if it's still available, you have to go online. You have to go to the website and check it out. By the way, there's some funny rules now with YouTube, and they're being very picky. There's some cigar channels that have been getting hit. That when they put a link to the cigar seller or whatever, their channels get shut down. We haven't seen this happen with whiskeys yet, so you got to kind of be very careful how you do things. So I purposely not put a link to any whiskey seller, producer, retailer, or business on my channels to avoid that because I don't want to be accused of anything. So, but everybody knows how to find the channel if they want to. But out of all these thus far, if I was going to say thus far, buy one, this is it. This is a really, really, really nice whiskey. And one of the questions I want to ask you, and I've got here in the panel is, have you had a whiskey that you did during a live stream? You did the neck pour, and later on you're like, son of a gun, you know what we should have done? We shouldn't have done neck pour reviews in a live stream. We should have tasted these wine, give some time, let some open up, and then really talk about them during the live stream. You ever had anything like that? Or afterwards you went back to it and you're like, this is a lot better than I originally thought?
Well, mine, since I got on, I get the bottles and I also shoot reviews of them. So before the live stream, I've always cracked mine. I've already poured and had a couple of pours of it.
Okay.
And shot a review. So I'm not necessarily getting those pours. Now you can still get, some whiskeys are just going to change, especially as the level drops and stuff. Honestly though, I haven't noticed that with any of ours yet.
Okay.
But I haven't gone back. I mean, You can see I got a few here behind me. I haven't necessarily
Really?
gone to all of them, though, to see either. But
Okay.
I think the high ABV really helps. And especially, I mean, until you get probably halfway down the bottle or something, maybe you see a change. But
Right. Yeah, I would say I've had more bottles, that I can think of that when I first opened it, I was like, oh no. And then later my mind was changed. Just recently, the Lagavulin 16-year-old, I was very unimpressed from the neck pour, but as it opened up, I was really impressed by it, and particularly impressed by it because it's only 43 ABV. And so it surpassed my expectations of it. But it really opened up really, really nice. Generally, I find peated whiskeys benefit more from air than non-peated whiskeys. So
yeah, and I think I've seen it more with those shelf bottlings where 43, 45, 46% after they get some air and they'll open up. Not that these won't, but
right.
I just haven't. I really can't say I've noticed it or had any that have changed on me.
All right, so this is the last one. We'll go to the next one. Orchards in the Sun, cask number 113. So that's Distillery 113. Their 49th cask, Speyside Ex-Bourbon. We basically had all Ex-Bourbon tonight. Some first fill, some refill, some Hogshead. 62.45% alcohol by volume. $125. And this is an 11-year-old. An 11-year-old. $125. So I haven't had. What's been the most? I'm trying to think. Most of the bottles. I think the most expensive bottle I've had tonight was 130. I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And I've had several here that were under $100. Unbelievable, given the current market.
So this has become one of this profile. This is spicy and dry, kind of this khaki yellowish colored label.
Right.
We've had some really outstanding whiskeys in this profile this past year. So it's really moved up my favorites chart.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a dry mustard on the nose on this one. I just got.
Oh, interesting note.
Yeah.
But I can see, but I don't know if it's a power suggestion, but yeah, now I can see that. Or smell that.
Yeah. It's just kind of tart, kind of tangy, kind of dry, peppery.
There's sort of like a dried apricot. A little bit there, a little maybe dried peach. The maltiness is there. It's not as much of big vanilla as some of the earlier ones.
Mm-mm.
The maltiness is there. You're smelling as highly IB whiskeys. I'm wondering how much I'm sort of numbing my nose at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
On the palate?
I think this is the highest ABV too tonight at 62.4, but we've had some good ones in there.
I'm feeling that one. It's drier. It's not as sweet. It's tangier. It's maltier. It's zingy, zeppy, zesty. It's sparkly.
Little bit more oak.
It tingles on the palate.
Dry, peppery. Yeah, that mustard, almost kind of a wasabi type.
But it's more of a white pepper than a black pepper.
White pepper.
Yeah. The skins of peach, the skins of apples, more of the skins than the fresh fruit character of it. It's zesty, more of a dried fruit character than a fresh fruit character. The ones we had earlier. So it's not just fruit. What style of fruit? It's the condition of fruit. Is it dried fruit? Is it fresh fruit? Is it rotten fruit? Is it whatever fruit? So this is more of I get more of a dried fruit. It has much more of that grainy, syrupy, malty character on the back end, and it's very zippity doo dah. And I don't think that's just alcohol. So alcohol and spice sometimes when combined and giving that sensation. I think it's a combination of the spiciness of this whiskey along with the alcohol. But yeah, really, really, really nice. So what I'm going to do tonight, actually, I'm not going to, because I got to get up and go to work in the morning. After we critical life, I'm going to keep these like this, And tomorrow I'm going to go back to these. I'm going to go through these again and see after they've been open overnight. But overall, I got to say my favorite tonight has been this one, the Serial Thriller, Cask 77.71 at $130. I think it's also the most expensive one, I think, tonight as well.
Probably.
Which tells you something about my taste. You know.
And I didn't have that one. I wish I'd have had that one so I could have tried that. Had that one with you.
Yeah, that's really, really nice. Maybe I could send you a sample.
Yeah, I've got plenty.
Yeah, you got tons of whiskey. You don't need people to send you samples. You need to send you samples. Let me see if I'm going to bring up the comments again and see if there's any questions. I know I may have missed some questions. I apologize if people had questions and I missed them. It's hard to keep track of everything. See, ask that one. Okay, here's a good one. I would love to have Daniel on, Whittington on, and ask him this. Well, we'll see him in a couple of weeks. I can ask him then. We've been to Scotland. How did your visit enhance your appreciation? You know what happens when you start growing a beard and you don't have it trimmed? It starts going into your mouth, and you actually start biting on it. All right. We've been to Scotland. Both you and I have been to Scotland. Ben's obviously been to Scotland. How did your visit to Scotland enhance your appreciation for whiskey and improve your ability to be a rep for SMWS? Has it at all you think affected your effectiveness or whatever to appreciate whiskey and be a better rep, you think?
Well, we were there. So Bart and I were there in 2019, and then I just started with SMWS last year. But to me, what's neat is just having, when you're talking certain distilleries or regions, having been there, you can picture it in your mind kind of where those distilleries sit, what the topography is, and things like that. The best thing to me really with Scotland was Islay. And it was just until you can see pictures, you can listen to stories, read books about Islay, but until you're there and you feel it, it's just a feeling, and you don't know it until you're actually set foot, on Islay. And I think that was probably the most magical, I guess you would say, experience for me in Scotland. But I just love it all. And then we had several, in-depth distillery tours. So those are always good, getting the behind the scenes looks, learned a lot there. And then, like I say, just the topography and just knowing Scotland now. And when we're talking to people, or they may say, hey, I'm going to Scotland, what do you recommend? And, after Islay, I tell people the Highlands up around Inverness is just a beautiful, beautiful area.
Yeah.
I just love that area up in there.
Yeah. I love Islay. When I left Islay, I actually started looking to see if I could buy a house there, real estate. Which I could buy one, but the problem is when would I ever get back there? Yeah. It would be a house I might visit once a year, and I'm not going to do that. But one of the main things about the Highlands, when I was coming for my second trip, I went from Orkney all the way down to Glasgow in one day. So doing that long trip, it's about 6 to 8 hours, somewhere in there, with a couple stops. And as I'm winding down, and you get more of you're looking down over everything and going through the valleys, see all the green. And I'm listening to bagpipes. It's actually a little tear in my eye. I get a little choked up. I feel very, the romantic of it. It's just, you just get caught up in the moment. It's absolutely beautiful place to go. But every time I taste a whiskey now, if I've been to the distillery, me personally, I have a better connection with the place. And there's some whiskeys I have not tasted because I want to visit the distillery first, particularly up in the northwestern Highlands, in the Highlands, or Raasay and so forth. So hoping to go back in 2023, and because the only, in terms of a major area of Scotland I haven't been to is the northwest, in the Hebrides, the northwestern islands, and so visit the distilleries out there, which are a little bit more remote and far apart and all that. Talisker is out there, and visit those, and I think it would enhance the experience. So whether if you're into bourbons and you go visit Kentucky, I've been only Kentucky once. visited the distilleries. I went there in the wintertime, visited 6 distilleries. It could be, maybe it's since it's romantic, maybe it's psychological. I don't know, but I did come away with a great appreciation of bourbon early in my career. Meeting the people who had particularly people who had a Kentuckian accent, but just sort of getting surrounded by a culture and old buildings and music. There were a couple of pubs I got to check out when I was in Scotland, and one of them I went in. There was live music, and you had dinner at the restaurant there. This was at the Copper Dog at Glenallachie. And I went in there, and there looked like a husband, looked like a father and daughter playing music there, and you just get really caught up in the whole atmosphere of it. Absolutely fantastic. So yeah, definitely. And I think if you can talk from experience about a distillery or a producer of whiskey, and not just the bottle and a book you read, I think it gives you more of a background, more credibility as well. So any plans you hoping to get back there?
Oh, definitely at some point. Nothing on the books right now, but yeah, hopefully we're there. So,
alrighty. So I know Daniel, Rex, and a bunch of magnificent bastards just went over to Scotland. They did a video posted last Saturday, but look forward to talking to Daniel and Rex when we're at the Bastards Ball and find out more about their experience. I'm kind of jealous. I've been wanting to get back, but I have the money. I just don't have the time at the moment to get back there. So
give me the money. I'll make the time.
It's hard. I have so many obligations. I have problems getting away from work to do work. I got so much work to do. There's other work I need to get done, but I ain't got time to do it because I got other work to do. So, all right. So we are just coming up on an hour and a half, which I think is about the same amount of time we did last time. So, Scott, I want to thank you very much for coming on and joining me for this to talk about the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. If you're turning in late, these are whiskeys I will revisit. Probably it won't be till next year. Finishing my current study by the end of the year. And then I'll be studying distilleries, those hard to find rare distilleries, and give you more historical background and all that on these whiskeys. And we'll get more into it. Then, unfortunately, by the time I do those videos, anybody watching those, they're not going to be able to buy. They probably won't be able to buy these at the time, but at least you can get some familiarity with the distillery and maybe buy other bottlings of the same distillery. So, alrighty. There is a famous saying that you usually wrap up with. All right. Scotch Malt Whisky Society. It's not for swigging. I need new glasses.
Glugging.
It's glugging.
Or knocking back.
Knocking back or butt chugging. No butt chugging.
And then please drink responsibly.
Please drink responsibly. All righty. Scott, hang on. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Anyone watching on the replay, if you happen to have any questions in the comments, leave them down below. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up. And we'll see you on Saturday. Saturday, we will be studying and looking more in depth at Lagavulin Distillery. Slanji Bob.
Cheers.